Hi, everybody. This is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Darryl Bates-Brownsword, business consultant and coach who's built two international multi-million dollar businesses. He's an expert at helping entrepreneurs prepare their businesses for successful exits. I'm personally super excited about this because I think so many entrepreneurs focus on running or growing their business and they don't spend enough time preparing for the big reward for all their hard work, the ability to sell your business and cash out. So, with that, welcome, Darryl, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brett. I'm excited for this one. Always love helping entrepreneurs get the most from their life's work, really.
Yeah, it's. I think what you do is awesome, and I'm really excited to dive into it. I actually wanted to start off with your background. So you didn't always start off in business. You actually started your career as an engineer, right? Can you tell us about that and what led you from there to where you are now?
Yeah, guilty. I grew up. My father was a career soldier, so I didn't have an entrepreneurial bone in my body, and so I, studied engineering and went to uni, and at that time in my life, I was conscious that I kind of didn't want to work with people. I didn't want to upset people, and so with engineering, I could fix machines and get work on things, and they not get upset with me, and I did that, and I love figuring out how things work, and I'm a logical, sequential person, uh, but I just didn't need to know that level of detail. I like to know what needs to happen, but I'm not so great at the how to, as it turns out. So I worked in the energy industry. I worked on power stations and the distribution of electricity in Australia for a good 10 years. And one day my boss sat down with me, and I jumped into the manager of the commercial section of an engineering services department. And my boss sat down with me and he said, "Darryl, what are you doing? All of your peers, all of your colleagues are really developing areas of specialization, and they're going along really well." And I've gone, "Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I get to do, I don't fit in, do I?" And I realized I was a square peg. And so, this was turn of the century, so about 98, 99. So they paid me to leave. I was halfway through my MBA. They gave me a chunk of cash to leave the organization because it was the time when people were doing right sizing and downsizing and all of those sort of things. And I went and joined a management consulting company. And I was finishing my MBA and focusing on marketing and finance because they were the two weaknesses from an engineering background. And I said to the guys, I said, "Look, we're focusing on all of our effort just doing the same as every other management consulting company, and we've got all this great expertise and knowledge, but so is everyone else. There's nothing different about us. We should really be focusing on the SME sector," because I was in Adelaide in Australia, which is, I guess, it's a major city, but not one of the really big ones like Brisbane, Sydney, or Melbourne. And all the big time consultants were coming from those cities to service any of the bigger organisations in Adelaide. So Adelaide is an SME town. It's that sort of city. And I said we should be focusing on the SMEs and helping them because all of our knowledge that we take for granted is new to them, and we should be applying it to them. And they said, "That'll never work, and it'll never work out like that, and they won't pay for it." And so I was, in my early 30s and still young and stupid. So I said, and had young kids. So I said to my wife, "Look, I've got to try this for myself. Give me a year. If I can't make it work, I'll get a real job. But I reckon there's an opportunity to use corporate knowledge to help SMEs." And I haven't had a real job since, I guess. And my parents thought I was crazy. My wife thinks I'm crazy for wanting to, take the risk and stress of running my own business and being in, having a small business and not having the security of, the perceived security of employment.
Yeah.
But here we are. What's that? 25 years ago, and I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I love learning and growing and trying, helping SMEs with their strategy and extracting them out of their business well, both from an exit perspective, but also from a perceptive of so that they can look into their business and see how to additionally add value and take their business to the next level. So there's a long answer to a short question for you.
It's great though. You recognize an opportunity and you were able to capitalize on that. It's amazing to me how many business owners, when they're in the throes of doing their business, have a very hard time stepping back. I'm included. I can look at somebody else's strategy. I can look at somebody else's marketing. I can look at somebody else's,
Yeah.
operations, and I can find things right away to fix. When you're trying to do it on your own, it's challenging. It's much harder to sort of separate yourself because you live it. You're doing it every single day. So,
Yeah.
um, so let's talk a little bit about the idea of exiting a business, just so everybody's on the same page. Can you clarify for us what you consider to be a successful exit?
Okay, I've got some bias here, but what I reckon is a successful exit, my definition is when you get to exit your business on the same terms that were agreed when you signed the deal. So what I mean by that is, and where does that perception or that belief or definition come from? It's when I've worked with business owners over many years where they've gone, look, I want to grow my business and I'll get it to the point where someone comes and approaches me, I get noticed and they want to buy my business. I go, what a great idea if you've got that sort of success. And I've seen too many business owners get to the point and they end up negotiating a deal. But during due diligence, when the buyers are having a look at their business and looking under the hood, so to speak, they're going, well, hang on a sec, hang on a sec, hang on a sec. Things aren't exactly as you described to me or as you presented them to me. Still like your business. It's a great business. And yeah, that level of revenue is great. But there's a whole lot, of that revenue, the security of that ongoing revenue requires your involvement. So I'll pay you this money and I'll pay you this much up front and I'll pay you this much over the next 3 to 5 years to transition the business to me and transition you out. What's often known as golden handcuffs or an earn out or something along those lines. And entrepreneurs and earnouts, they're like oil and water. They just don't mix. They don't work well together. They don't play nice. And look, I haven't got any real stats, but empirical data suggests that like 70 or 80% of those just don't work. Either because the buyer now owns the business and they can move the goalposts, they can change the rules on you. The deal wasn't clearly defined enough to know exactly what it all works, which is a big chunk of the time. Or the other one is that the owners are just so used to running their own business and calling the shots themselves that they just really can't fit into being an employee and having to report to someone else. So they walk away and leave money on the table. So what is a good successful business exit? When you're in a position to negotiate the terms and the money works for you and for them, and you know what you're moving on to next. So the deal is completed on the same terms that they were signed. That's my definition.
That's really interesting but it makes a lot of sense because especially if you're dealing with two different size businesses, if the acquiring business is bigger, they have more resources. They can stall you out. They probably have more savvy also if they're used to doing it. So it's easy
Exactly.
for them to sort of, add all these extra things in that you weren't anticipating. At this point, if you're a you're just ready to get out. So you're like, okay, whatever, and you just sort of yes
Yeah.
them to get the deal done, and before you know it, like you said, you're in a completely different situation than what you started with. So that's a really unique, interesting take on it, and it's not something that I would have thought of either. So I've spoken to a lot of business coaches. I've spoken to a lot of business consultants. You're the first that's actually particularly focused on this one element of business, but I actually think it's super important. Like we were talking about even before we started in our chat. Um, what got you fascinated with this particular part, or what really drew you to the idea of helping businesses prepare to do this the right way?
You want the truth or you want me to tell you a nice story?
Yeah, either way, I'm all
So
ears.
there's two sides to answer this question, Brett. So The first one is I was one of those consultants and worked with consultants in a business, and we were part where we offered business coaching. And we were building the business, and it was basically management consulting, coaching for SMEs to help them grow their business. Now, there's a gazillion of them out in the marketplace, from businesses to one-man bands, etc. But over the years, I just saw too many, and we were growing businesses and we're helping them increase their valuation. Although we weren't always focused on increasing valuation, we're just helping them to grow the business to achieve their vision and aspirations. And after a number of years, it was growth for growth's sake. Too many business owners, there's sayings out there where if you're not growing, you're going, and that all makes sense. If your business is plateaued, it's standing still, it's really going backwards. And you see a lot of businesses out there that look like that because the owners have taken it as far as they can, and they've just stalled for a number of years. But I saw a number of business owners where they exited their business, as I touched on before, and they thought they were getting a good deal and with an earn-out, but it all went pear-shaped and didn't work out for them. So that's part of the reason why I got onto this side of just focusing on exit planning. And when you're focusing on exit planning, you're implementing and instilling good business practice. So everything you do around exit planning is good business practice, and makes the business, the sooner you get it into your business, it makes it a better business to run, more enjoyable, more profitable. The owners are working less hours, so all the things that they're looking for anyway. But with business exit planning, with a focus on valuation, you can demonstrate the value that you bring to the client. You can go, well, look, we've put this here in your business. Your net business now looks like this. Let's do a new valuation, or look at the impact that's made. So they can see that it costs them, I don't know, 50 grand, and their valuation's gone up for 500. All of a sudden, you put it right in front of them and you can demonstrate the value. So that's half of the story. The other half of the story is that the business management consulting and coaching practice that we were running, I wasn't it just didn't end up the way I would have liked to, shall we say, and it all went pear-shaped. And there's the school of hard knocks. So I just seen how and experienced how it can all fall over if you haven't built those foundations that you've solidly built and you're preaching about, and your leadership aren't aligned and everyone rowing in the same direction. I just experienced how that didn't work, and so I'm going, hey, look, we got to change that. We've got to get that message out there. We've got to help more business owners that you've got to get ready for exit. And on top of that, you've probably seen the statistic. It's shared a lot out there in the marketplace, but maybe just my circles. If you look at SME business owners, you look at the cross-section of business owners, however many there are, they're the bedrock of the economy. Of all the privately held businesses and the SMEs, and I'm talking that sort of 0 to 100 mil type sector, of where the privately owned owners, the founders, are often still involved in the business on a day-to-day basis. Of all the owners that try and exit those businesses, only 20% are successful. Now, all of these business owners are building their businesses up over 5, 10, 15, 20 years, assuming that one day they're going to be able to just, when the time is right and they're ready, it's a bit like selling their car, they think. They go, right, I've had enough of this car, I'm ready for a new car, I'll put it on the market, I'll sell it, and next week I'll go get a new one. It doesn't happen like that with a business. A business is the biggest asset a person's going to have, mostly. Most of these people, if they're building their business, it's potentially the biggest asset they've got.
Yeah.
And if they don't prepare it properly, they'll try and take it to the marketplace, and in a year, they don't get to sell it because it's not attractive. Buyers see it as a risk, and they have a look at all the things about their business, and they go, "That's just too risky for me. I'll walk on to the next one," and only 20% get to do a deal. So to me, that's just tragic, and it's avoidable. So we've got to change that. We've got to get that recognition out in the marketplace that if you want to exit, and if you want to exit on your terms successfully, as we were touching on earlier, and you want to get the most from your life's work, and you want to maximize the valuation, get the most valuation that you can, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to prepare your business. And we've got to get that message to the marketplace so that business owners are just aware of it. Just like Gerber got the message out to the marketplace that you need to work on your business and not in your business. And everyone understands that principle now. So I've taken a leaf out of his book, and we're telling the world, you got to prepare your business to be ready for exit.
No, I read that book, and that quote always stuck with me. It's so he had such a great way to just encapsulate that. You're like, wow, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You're stuck doing the day to day. You can't, and it's funny because when I talk with people, or I talk with other entrepreneurs and business owners, I always ask them the question. I don't do what you do, but I try to get them to think that way, in the sense that I'll say, if you were somebody that was an investor
Yeah.
and you could invest in your own business, would you do it? Because if the answer is no, you're never going to be able to sell it. I mean, it's your passion. If you wouldn't even invest in your own business, nobody else is going to want it either.
That's a
So you
great.
got to at least make sure you got that box checked, um,
Yep.
just from the get go. Um,
It really
so
brings it
is there?
home. If you
Yeah.
ask them that question, it really cuts through to the gut, and makes them stop it, stand to their tracks, and stop and think. So yeah, that's a great question. Well done.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I always I look at things. It's so amazing when you even when you learn something and then when you teach it, right? Your relationship with that information changes. And
Yeah.
so there's value in there. When you look at things from different perspectives, it really does matter. It really does help you see things more holistically and from a more objective perspective. Like we were talking before, how difficult it is as a business owner sometimes to separate yourself because you're doing it every single day, to be able to see things objectively. You're in love with your products, you're in love with what you're doing, but that doesn't mean everybody else is. So you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta be able to see that through clear lenses and not through your own sort of perspective. So in terms of trying to prepare for an exit, or going through the process of doing it, is there a particular mistake other than signing a deal that would make them be golden handcuffed to their own business? In the prep stages, is there any mistake or group of mistakes that you see that are common that business owners and entrepreneurs make when they're trying to go about that, or trying to find someone to buy their business?
So yeah, look, let me answer it this way. So our focus, we don't find buyers. Our focus is, let's just make sure that when the time's right, your business is sellable. Now, my mantra, or my focus is, the sooner I can work with you, the sooner you start preparing your business to be exit ready, the better. Even if you don't want to sell it for 10 years time, because you'll introduce a whole lot of discipline and practice in your business that will help you scale. It'll relieve your stress so you don't have to work 60, 80 hours a week. And you have more profitable and more fun in the meantime. So more money, more time, less stress while you wait. So what are the mistakes business owners make? The big one is thinking, I don't have to prepare my business to be exit ready until I want to sell it. So there's the big assumption, is thinking, well, it's just like, washing my car and giving it a valet, and, giving it a vacuum and a bit of armor all on the dash, or a bit of, stuff, and polish the dash and make it look nice and smell nice and clean and buff out any scratches. And I guess that's partly because of the financial world out there has sort of said, this is what you have to do. We need to tidy up your accounts, and we need to, clean up your accounts and make sure that it looks like, what you're being paid is a proper salary, and we change all the ad backs and get rid of your one-off costs. And if we can create 3 years of growing profit, that's all good. Now that's absolutely a good thing, and something that you need to do is tidy up your financials and your financial reporting to demonstrate that you've got control of your business. But that's only half the equation. Most businesses are sold as a multiple of profit, or a measure of profit. Now I can tidy up the profit, and I can improve the profit, and that'll increase the valuation of my business. But what if I change that multiple from 5 to 6, or from 3 to 5? That's going to have a far greater effect on the valuation of your business. Now, most people overlook that simple fact. They just try and increase the profit, and they assume that the multiple is what the multiple is. They'll go, well, in my industry, it's always a 5. Well, it's not. It's not always a five. And whenever you ask business owners, you go, do you know of anyone who sold for more than a five or whatever the standard number is? And they go, yeah. There was this one who sold for 10. Why? Ah, well, he just got lucky. And I go, bullshit. It's not luck. They had sometimes there's a bit of luck in timing. I'll grant you that. But the other things they did, whether deliberately or unconsciously, they eliminated a whole lot of risks in the way their business was run, which made it more attractive to be acquired. So their contracts, their revenue was secure and repeatable and predictable. Their employees, they had great employees, they had great culture, that their employees stayed around and they were trained and they were growing and looked after the business. The employees think and acted like business owners. They had systems that demonstrated the business was run consistently and therefore efficiently. They had a marketing machine that they could almost pull a lever and determine how many leads they were going to get in that week, because it was, again, their marketing machine was systemized and controlled. Then they had some IP or intellectual property in their business, which means, especially for a service business, that people were coming to the business to buy the process that the business offered, rather than coming to the business because Brett works there, and Brett's a great guy and I've worked with Brett before and he's a legend. And and then I've got the business has a brand, and people were coming to that brand because they know they can buy that process from that brand. And then their whole business is templated, and which means Gerber I think he calls it a blueprint or a franchise prototype or something. Their business is scalable because they can just plug and play it in another location. When you've got those 7 layers in place, all those things add up to increase the attractiveness of the business and reduce the risks, which means you'll be more attractive to a strategic buyer and get a higher multiple on your valuation. Now, all those things are intangible. They don't sit on your balance sheet and they're invisible to most people. Anyone who's just coming in and looking at your business from an operational perspective, they just won't even see that, because all they're looking at is the spreadsheets, the P&L and the balance sheets, because that's where it's the only tangible thing they can see. So if you allow 2 or 3 years, you can work on these things if you've got the right person to focus on them with you.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what a great like encapsulation of all that. So
You've
obviously we
really
want to
got me on
start.
my soapbox today, Brett. You've got me on a Friday afternoon, and I'm wound up and ready to go.
That's what I like. I mean, hey, the more information I can get, the better. Um, yeah, so I think that I think a couple of things that are super important takeaways is, number one, we want to start preparing our business long before we're ready to sell it, and even if we have no plans at all to sell it, because at least then we have those options, but also we get other benefits from it.
Yeah,
And it takes a minimum of a couple of years to do
yeah.
that. So we definitely don't want to wait on that. So I hear that stuff loud and clear. In terms of an attractiveness factor, businesses, we talked a little bit about that because you just gave us a number of really good things that you could do. I know what I hear a lot is people talk about two different things. They talk about growth and they talk about profitability. And some people will say, oh, you're always going to get like a multiple of your profitability. And others will say, well, it depends. If you're in a fast growing industry, they don't care as much about profitability. They care about growth. In your experience, is one better than the other, or what should we be focusing on from a numbers perspective in addition to those other pieces?
I like that question. I like to, when I'm working with business owners, we'll go, hey, look, everyone's out there talking about, as you say, profit. And if you increase the profit, or the EBITDA, which is a specific measure of profit, which tries to equalize against all industries and your competitors, which is not a great measure, but anyway. So we use a measure of profit, and to look at your business. So business owners are conditioned to go, well, if I keep growing my profit, my business will be worth more. My encouragement is to go, let's look at the valuation of your business. If you're a savvy business owner, change your mindset from profit growth to valuation growth. And so if you get I think every business owner should get a valuation of their business and go through the exercise, but a strategic valuation that shows you where all the weaknesses are, and which are basically, if you're not planning to sell anytime soon, are where all the opportunities are. Here's all the things that a buyer perceives as risks. Let me address those and my valuation goes up. So if you start thinking about the valuation of your business and you check in and have a KPI every year of your valuation rather than your profit, then they're the things I would encourage business owners to look at, because that's going to vary from industry to industry, whereas how your valuation will increase. But if you're looking at the evaluation, that's your key metric, right? Because if you're looking to exit your business, you're wanting to know what the number in your back pocket's going to end up being after tax. But that's the golden number for you, and to make sure that number is going to provide you with what you need in the aspirational lifestyle you want for your next chapter.
I like that, because what you're basically doing is you're saying, look, I don't care what the general ideas are. What I care about is I want to align what I'm doing with my own business with what's going to matter for me when I try to sell my own business. So whatever industry I'm in, if it's profit here or growth here or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever's going to affect that valuation, that is obviously a really good way to look at that. So let's talk a little bit about businesses that actually get sold. I know as somebody who's an acquirer or a buyer, you might really want the entrepreneur or the business owner or whatever to stay in it. And we've already talked about the dangers of that, because then you have that creep element, you have the moving goalposts, you have the person who just can't seem to extricate themselves. And the whole point was to do that in the first place. So is there a right or wrong, or are there rules around that? Like, is it always wrong to agree to that? Or should there be just limits on it? Or how can we approach that if we can't get someone to just write us a check and say, see you later? Or should we only go for that kind of an agreement?
It depends, which is not real helpful, is it? So let's get clear on why they're looking to exit their business. Sometimes business owners, I reckon there's three main buckets that business owners want to exit their business. First one is, let's get rid of the negative ones first, is what the hell happened to my industry? My industry just changed and I didn't notice, and my business just evaporated. The rug was pulled out from under me, type of thing. Think of typewriters or DVD rentals, if anyone can remember those things. So that's my business just faded away behind me. Or it truly was a self-employed business with 10 helpers or 20 helpers or what have you. The next one is, well, you know what? I've taken the business as far as I can. My skill set's got me this far. I've taken it this far. I don't know how to grow it any bigger than what it is. And you'll see a lot of businesses that are plateaued at about $1 million, which is the first plateau that I see that business owners are stuck at. And that's where typically why $1 million? Because one business owner can have direct relationships with, on average, 7, but let's stretch that up to 15 people. And 7 to 15 people have a direct line of command with the owner, and they haven't figured out how to delegate to a management team and maintain control of the business. So they're limited to the 15 people, which will be about $1 million and a half, pounds, what have you. And then you'll get replications of those plateaus depending on the number of founders in the business. You get 3 founders, that goes to 3 to 4 million. So some business owners have taken the business as far as they can take it, and then they just keep doing more and more hours, more and more stressed, or maybe not, but they've taken it as far as they want to sell it. The next group, or the third group of business owners that want to exit their business, are guys that have gone, we've built this up to this size, but you know what? Let's go again. We got one last hurrah. We reckon we've built an opportunity in the marketplace. We've got through those 7 things that we talked about earlier, and our business is attractive and it's scalable, but we need funding to do that. Why don't we bring on a PE partner who buys half of our business from us? We don't want to exit yet. We just want to de-risk, but we want to use your money to scale this baby up and giddy up and go. We're ready to go. We want to stay around, and we'll go on this journey with you. Bring in some CFOs if you like, or whoever else you need to bring in, but let's go, let's get this baby going. So that's a different energy, right? So if you're looking to de-risk and scale up and bring in a PE partner, then you can either stay or go. Both are valid options, but you can see where I'm going. It depends on where you are in your life, where you are in your energy, and what you want to do next, which will determine if it's the right strategy to go, I need to set my business up so I'm out of here. I've shaped it, I've prepared it, it's beautiful, there you go, it's all yours now, to hang on baby, let's go on this ride together. I've got all my history, my knowledge, but I need your experience and expertise to ramp this baby up.
Yeah, no, and that makes total sense. Obviously, it's going to be different
Good.
solutions based on different things. I got to tell you a crazy story. So you just said that as a solo, owner,
Yeah.
you typically would be capped out around 7 employees and a million, million and a half. When I was out of college, the first thing that I did was I started a business.
Well done.
I grew the business to 7 employees and 1.3 million.
There you
It's
go.
as far as I got. I couldn't. I had outkicked my coverage. I couldn't at that point. Skill set wasn't there, and combine that with the fact that the market that I was in got to a point where it just wasn't tenable anymore. So I had to make a decision. I ended up just closing that business. But the reality of it is, what we did is we did custom configured PCs, computers
Okay.
back in the day, and we shipped them all over the U.S. And so it was a great model initially. And I got the idea because I was helping a friend. I was a tinkerer, so I could build PCs and stuff, and I really enjoyed it. One of my buddies wanted to build a PC, and he said, I don't really want to buy like one of these name brand ones. Will you come with me to this computer show and help me buy the parts I need and put it together? So I did that. We got his entire PC for like $500 or $600 less than what they were selling for retail. And I said, light bulb, wow, I could do this and we could just ship these things and we could undercut all these big guys. We don't have a brand name, but whatever. And it actually really worked for a while because we had a just in time inventory model where I was able to get memory and computer chips only buying them, and I could order at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd be on my doorstep in the morning. So we could take advantage of all those price drops all the time when Dell and all these other big guys had to have millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars of inventory where they had to cost average and they couldn't compete with us on price. Well, it didn't take very long, and they figured out that inventory cycle. And within, I don't know, a couple of years, it got really hard to compete. The margins kept shrinking, the margins kept shrinking. And I said, just strategically looking at this is no longer a good business model for what we're doing. I wanted to pivot and do other things, but I realized that at the time, with the skill set of the people I had and what I was doing, I had to just, stop and cease the operation. But it's fascinating because those are almost the exact numbers that you mentioned, and that's exactly where I got to. So, um,
There you go.
pretty fascinating.
There's a
So
good
if
case
we're,
study for us.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So um, if we're in the process of trying to do this and we decide, okay, I've prepared everything, I want to go ahead and I want to try to negotiate one of these deals, should we go that alone or do we need help to be able to do this? Because as we mentioned earlier, right, sometimes we might be dealing with someone who's far more savvy and sophisticated as a buyer than we are as a seller. So are there tips with regards to that?
You can go alone if you want. It'd be the daftest decision you make in your life, but you can do it. So look, you're absolutely right. What you were touching on before, Brett, is that you know businesses that buy businesses, it's unlikely that a smaller business is going to buy a bigger business unless somehow they've got access to a whole truckload of capital and there's something special about those entrepreneurs. So in the normal scenario, the most case scenario, a bigger business is buying a smaller business. More, regularly, they've done it before. They've bought other businesses. They know the game that they're doing. So they can easily push you around. And you talk to anyone in this field that buys businesses, they go, if I buy from an owner who is unrepresented, doesn't have their own, private banker or they don't have their own advice, good corporate lawyer, it's a pushover. I can get a really good deal, and they're not always ethical. So This is going to be, in most cases, the biggest asset you've built in your life. It's worth far more than your car and your home if you've done a really good job at it. You're going to get one crack at this. You make sure you do it right and you get the most out of the opportunity, because if you don't, what should be the pinnacle of your business career is going to end up feeling like a messy divorce. You get the bankers on board, you get the tax advice well before you want to exit, and a good tax accountant will restructure things and set things up so that you're tax efficient when you do exit. You get the right corporate lawyers in place that are on your side and they're not emotionally attached, so you can get the right negotiators who aren't attached to the deal, and they know how these negotiations work, and they know the games that are played in this scenario because they've done it a million times before, and they're not emotionally attached, so they will look after you. Now, yes, it can be expensive, but they will save you far more than they'll cost you. So please do not try and go it alone. Please. Not after everything else you've done.
I suspected that was going to be the answer, but I wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity to hit that one, because that's something where if you looked at the price tag, you might be scared. But when you realize the difference, that it's actually it's an investment in a higher profit and peace of mind, satisfaction of knowing that you did this the right way, that you didn't get to the 1 yard line and then fumble the ball. You know,
You've made a
that's
really
I,
good point, Brett. You've really touched on something there that I missed. Price is just part of it. The right team will make sure that you get the right terms in your negotiation to make sure that you're not exposed, for years after you've sold the business. So, getting the right attorneys in place, the right advisors on your side will make sure that your risks are covered, so that once you've left the business, you can sleep at night knowing that you don't have any further risk exposure. So thanks for adding
yeah,
that.
which is awesome. All right, so where can people find your products, find your services, connect with you?
Best way is to have a look at my name on the screen there. There is only one of me on the planet. So that makes it really easy to find me. You'll find me mostly on LinkedIn. I run a business called Succession Plus, which you will find at succession.plus. And the first thing I'd encourage you to do, if you want to find out where you stand with your business, and if you're thinking about exiting your business in 3, 4, 5 years time, come to our website and take the business sellability score. So best way, if you want to shortcut that, go to succession.plus/UK for United Kingdom, and the business sellability score is right there. Or if you just search business sellability score, you'll find it. And that is an indicator where you can it'll take you less than 5 minutes to complete. And it'll take you through a process of understanding how ready you are for an exit, how ready the business is for an exit, and how likely the numbers are going to add up for you, and you'll get a good deal. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that your business is exit ready when you're ready to exit, and the numbers are going to work for you. That's where we want to get you to.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right, I have one last question I have to ask because I think it's important. I always love to know what everyone's going to say, and that's, what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
In general, not just exit planning.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, here's one that I learned many years ago when I first started working with SME business owners. And as a young guy, when I was learning and working with a lot of business owners in a consulting space, I was often asking a similar question, because I was, I always, a thirst for knowledge, and I wanted to learn more, and I'd ask a very similar question. And if I was to summarize a lot of the feedback I got from these business owners, it's, I wish I'd hired sooner, and I wish I'd fired sooner. So when someone's not a fit for your business, and they're just they're not the right fit, they're in the wrong place for them, it's far more humane to let them go sooner, because it's better for them and it's better for you and the rest of the business. And the hire sooner, you've backed yourself as a business owner to begin with. Everything's gone right so far. Keep backing yourself. It's time to ready to hire. Follow your gut. Go for it.
It's great advice, and I fully agree. I've been guilty of it myself. If you have a heart, if you're humane, you feel like, oh, I don't want to tell somebody it's not working out, but all you're doing is creating tension between both of you because they sense it too. And
Yeah,
then ultimately you're preventing them from doing what they're going to be really good at, and you're
exactly.
preventing yourself, and then it just gets resentment and bitterness. Whereas if you just have the frank conversation, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment, at the end of the day, what will happen is they'll respect you for it, and you'll respect yourself for having done it, and everybody will ultimately be better off. And for the hiring piece of it as well, too often we as entrepreneurs, I think, feel that the self reliance element of being an entrepreneur is both the blessing and the curse. It gives us the confidence to say we're going to go out and try to do what we need to do. At the same time, we overestimate what we're capable of doing and feel like we could just keep heaping more on top of our back and carry the load. And you get to a point where you realize you're not only plateauing, but you're burning out. And no matter how good you are at things, you're not the best at everything. So you could hire people that are better at some of the things than you are anyway. So it's great advice, and I fully agree. I've experienced it myself. So I
Cool.
want to thank you again so much, Darryl, for sharing all your insights, great tips with us. Visit succession.plus/UK/business sellability score to take the business sellability scorecard and find out how attractive your business is to be acquired. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want from your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.